So it's very interesting that right now there's a very popular song sung by children, the Miami Boys Choir, and it's significant that that song or that group would become so popular online that it would pay to take a closer look at what they're saying and what it means for the world. In the days of the sages, when they wanted to know what the situation was, the state of the union of the world, one of the things they would do is listen to what the children were talking about or singing about. Somehow children have an innate sense. And if they're optimistic, then the world is going in a good direction. If they're not, it's not a good sign. Generally, the mood of children reflects the mood of the world. So it's very interesting that right now there's a very popular song sung by children, the Miami Boys Choir, and it's significant that that song or that group would become so popular online that it would pay to take a closer look at what they're saying and what it means for the world. They're quoting a line from Psalms: "Just as Jerusalem is surrounded by mountains, the Jewish people are surrounded by God." Or in an inverse way, mountains surround Jerusalem the way God surrounds the Jewish people. And that is from now and forever. That is the verse in Psalm 125. Let's take a closer look. The simple meaning is God protects his people like mountains protect Jerusalem. Now, what kind of protection are we talking about? Jerusalem has been sacked a number of times. Not like it's invulnerable. So what kind of protection are we talking about? If we look into the deeper meaning of it, first of all, what is Jerusalem? Sure, it's a city, capital of Israel, the place where the Holy Temple was built, the first and second, and also where the third temple will be built. But the inner meaning of Jerusalem, Yerushalayim, means a comprehensive or total fear of God. Fear of God simply means the humble feeling that you get when you think about approaching God. You're going to pray, you're going to ask God, you're going to speak to God. Well, it's got to be a humbling feeling. What am I doing talking to God? So that humility or that feeling of insignificance makes the encounter with God so much more exciting. It's like breaking all the rules and getting to speak to God. As a result, when you fulfill his commandments, when you do what he asks of you, you do it much more carefully, much more thoughtfully, with the proper awe and respect. So, basically, Jerusalem means the humility with which we approach God. This fear, or this humility, is surrounded by mountains. What do mountains represent? Mountains actually represent pride. Mountains rise. They are higher, they're above, they're not flat, they're not valleys, they're mountains. Now they could represent arrogance if they get too big, but in a moderate sense, it represents confidence, pride. Not unwarranted pride, the necessary pride in which self-respect. So we have here two opposites. The humility of Jerusalem is protected by mountains that surround it. In other words, in addition to the humility with which we approach God, we need the confidence, the pride that will allow us to dare go where angels fear to tread. So a good combination of humility and confidence is what makes Jerusalem possible. So what protects our humility? The knowledge that we are engaged in a very significant, cosmic, eternal mission with all due humility. In the same way as the mountains protect the humility of Jerusalem, God protects his people. Are they the same? Then it would be redundant. In what way does God surround his people? Well, on the one hand, his people is a pretty daring statement. They're the chosen people. They have a special mission. They have greater responsibility. They are the voice of God to the world, stood at Mount Sinai, heard God face to face, and now have the mission or the responsibility of sharing that revelation with the world. That's heady stuff. What protects that? That God surrounds his people. There is the communication, the knowledge, the learning, the understanding. That all gives pride and backbone to our mission, but that's got to be protected by a healthy coating of humility. God surrounds his people. We can't completely understand God. There are things that are surrounding us, but we can't internalize it. So again, this combination of humility, knowing that God is much bigger than anything we understand or know, and at the same time value the knowledge that we do have. So we have here two kind of opposite statements. Humility protected by pride, and pride protected by humility. Fascinating concepts. But essentially, it's the story of our existence. That's it. That's the whole story. Insignificant creatures doing very significant things. Very significant activities coded by the awareness that we are very insignificant in and of ourselves. The result is indestructible, protected. When we say protected, we don't just mean balanced. How is it that the Jewish people are still here? What is it about the Jew that he's still here when other nations are gone? This might be part of the answer. This healthy combination, not an extreme, not an exclusive one or the other. It's got to be a healthy humility coded by a healthy pride, and healthy pride coded by humility. That, the psalmist says, can make you last from now and forever.